Well, thanks for staying with us. We'll begin this hour with Nigeria. That is one of the countries under the program developed by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, using the multiple indicator cluster surveys to provide up-to-date statistical information on the conditions of children and women in Nigeria, and specifically on child's right. Our rights correspondent Benny Ark has more details for us.
The Global Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey was developed by UNICEF in the 1990s as an international household survey program to support countries in the collection of internationally comparable data on a wide range of indicators on the situation of children and women. These surveys measure key indicators that allow countries to generate data for use in policies and programs and to monitor progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and other internationally agreed commitments. The Multiple Indicator Cluster Surveys are household surveys implemented by countries under the program, developed by the United Nations Children's Fund to provide up-to-date statistical information on the conditions of children and women. The first in the series of the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey in Nigeria was conducted in 1995 by the Federal Office of Statistics, now National Bureau of Statistics, with the technical and funding assistance from UNICEF. Since then, it has been institutionalized within the National Integrated Survey of Households in the National Bureau of Statistics as a process of collecting regular, reliable, and timely social data. Multiple indicator cluster survey findings have been used extensively as a basis for policy decisions and program interventions, and for the purpose of influencing public opinion on the situation of children and women around the world. Benny Ark, Arise News.
Okay, we have in the studios now UNICEF representative in Nigeria, Peter Hawkins. Hello, Peter.
Good evening.
Nice having you on Newsnight.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here, as always.
Yeah. Now, tell us, since 2017, when this last survey was done, would you say there's been any significant improvements, in those areas where women and children, the girl child, have been, I don't know if I can use the word changed or not fully developed socio-economically? Yeah. Has there been any great improvement?
Yeah, I think what the Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey 2021 shows us, and this is a joint effort between the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and UNICEF, is that there has been an increase and a betterment of indicators, and there are 200 indicators altogether, around health or education, child protection, around FGM and other type things. But is it enough? That's the question we've all got to ask. So for example, let me give you one of the best examples. Immunization has increased from 50% to 57%. That is a significant increase. But the variation state by state, Lagos is very good. Sokoto has only increased from 7% to 11%. So that 11% is still a burden where you're looking at children. And it's those sort of things that we need to now look at and start working with governors, with line ministries, to look at the areas where the improvements haven't been significant, or where they have been significant, to build on that to do even more.
I like that. Building is quite critical because I'm looking at some of the data right now as it concerns women and children. Over 13.5 million out-of-school children in Nigeria prior to COVID-19. And of course, we do know that after the pandemic, that number even went up. And of course, we're still waiting for the new data concerning that. Maternal mortality was still recording high numbers. Even on the 5 deaths in the world, Nigeria still is on the top of that list. Talk to us about, the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, you say we have recorded some success, but what areas really troubles you the most that we should prioritize as a nation?
I think you're right, and one of the good things about the Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey 2021 is the first national survey since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're looking at a snapshot at a time when there's been stress on the social economy of the country and the services of the country. So I think, you've indicated one area, education. 10.2 million children are out of school, out of basic education school. So not even going into the school. The Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey reckon that about 24% of children are still out of school. As a percentage, it has increased slightly. I think it's 1 or 2%. But in actual numbers, and this is around maternal mortality, other indicators, while the percentage might have increased marginally, the actual numbers of children affected or women affected has increased substantially because of the demographic increase in Nigeria. And it's that we have to be wary of. So a percentage increase or decrease, whichever way you look at it, while we can celebrate that success, we must look at the actual numbers. And for many of them, child marriage, for example, there's a significant decrease in as a percentage in the number of children being married off, number of girls being married off. But in actual numbers, Nigeria is now second in the world and could very soon become the first in the world. And
Quite
that's
troubling, but just to follow up, Christian,
Okay,
the fact that I know that you had criticized the money budgeted for education in Nigeria, which is just about a little over 5%. Where do you think, looking at the economic realities of a nation such as Nigeria, the government will tell you we don't have enough money? Close to 6 months now, university lecturers have been at home due to what the government says is lack of funds. You have criticized what was even budgeted in the first place. So where do you think we need to stretch it to before you be comfortable that the Nigerian child will get the much needed education?
To be fair on the Minister of Finance, she's increased it to 7.5% in 2022. But it's not the actual budgeting that matters. It's the release. It's the release and the implementation. We reckon in some places up to 48% of the money is not released or there is a variation. So it's the follow through that is critical. And even if it is small, 7.5% is small, if you could use that money effectively, you would have a massive impact. And I know the Minister of Finance in Education and in Health is looking at this. And what the Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey does is give the Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning the data to be able to target money to have the greatest impact on children. It gives the governors, because it's disaggregated to each state, a governor can look at their state and say, this is a problem, I can target it and start to invest properly so that it's effective. The money is released in a timely manner and it is used effectively to improve the lives of women and children.
Okay, that brings me to something a little technical here. What really is the novelty about the MICS, particularly when you score it against acquiring data and the data that you've seen across boards? What should stakeholders like you, the government and others be looking at in regenerating, these conditions that you've outlined?
One of the critical things around the Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey is that it's meant to happen every 3 years, so you can look at the trends. Yeah? Unfortunately, there's been a delay this time because of COVID. But it does allow you to look at the trends. So each governor will be able to get the figures from 2016 to 2021 and look at where the trend is in looking at women and children. Secondly, we have now 200 indicators inside. So there are multiple areas you can look at right across the board. So issues around protection, like child labour, for example. So Lagos can look at it where child labour has a significant number of children affected, while the percentage might be slightly lower than some other places. One of the key areas that I noticed was pressure on children or violence against children. That has increased. And we talked about this, I think it was about a year ago, a perception survey that was done which showed 83% of the children feel that the pressure on them is too much. What we're seeing here in the Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey 2021 is that 90% of children feel that they're receiving some sort of violence, whether in the classroom.
90%?
Yes.
That is
or
quite
pressure,
significant and troubling.
and it's gone up from 85% to 90%. And it's that trend that we need to be looking at to be able to reverse it, look at positive discipline, look at
getting them back
bullying,
to school again.
Bullying, taken out of a way of life, the pressure on children the domestic pressure on children, go and learn, go and collect water, go and do this, go and do that, and let the child be a child and be able to learn.
Let the children be children. But at the end of the day, Peter, you and UNICEF, you have conducted this survey, which we're definitely grateful for, because some people would say once you identify an issue, then it's easier for you to solve it. But who would you say you're hoping will get a hold of this data that you have collected right now, and how would you hope that it's used, especially looking at government at all levels, from the federal to the state and even to the local governments?
The owners of this data, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. The Statistician General is the one who actually owns it. The Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning are the custodians of the data, and they use it a lot. And now what we will do is disseminate it down to each of the states so that they can. You're 100% right. Data is so important in this context. If you don't understand the extent of the problem and the direction in which the problem is going in, you cannot find the result to be able to resolve that problem, and you won't know with the result when you've got there without data of this kind. So we have invested a lot of money with the National Bureau of Statistics to ensure that data is available to all decision makers.
Fantastic. Well, I know you're having a program in 2 days about the MICS and the rest, and where all stakeholders will converge on Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Well, wishing you all the best there. Absolutely. Peter Hawkings, UNICEF country's director or representative rather, in Nigeria. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for us here in Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa.
We do our best.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.